This time around, it's around understanding our differences, and that's what the theme is. So why is that important? Well, all sorts of reasons. But you may have heard this quote from Peter Drucker that that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And essentially, we know that we won't get far without a team, that our team can be our greatest asset if they're performing really well, but equally, they can also be our biggest headache. So the idea around what Peter's saying here essentially is that a good set of people, if you get that good set of people and you get the culture right within the business, then they will rescue what is even a bad strategy. Whereas if you've got a not very good group of people, even if you've got a great strategy, then the chances are that you're going to have trouble executing on it. And people behave differently. They behave differently generally. They behave differently in different situations. Some people need a challenging environment. That's what they thrive in. Other people focus and need more on harmony. Others are very much about needing to be liked. Some really love to be constrained by rules, others completely the opposite. And some really need to feel supported, where others are quite good out on their own, acting independently. And of course, it's important that we understand those differences from ourselves, from our own point of view, but also that the members of our team understand those differences so that they can really start to work together cohesively. A little bit of a busy slide, but it just sums up some of the findings from our ScaleUp Challenge research that we carried out recently. And if you look at the 4 boxes, which are by turnover band, as we grow, as the turnover gets a little bit bigger within businesses, then you can see how the people issues come to the fore of these. So if we look down the 1 to 3 million, getting staff to think and act for themselves and take responsibility in the way that you would, comes to the top, as it does in the 3 to 5 million turnover levels, and it's also very high, high in the 500,000 to 1 million turnover level as well. So intuitively, we know that as we get more people, we're obviously going to have more people challenges, but equally that idea of getting our teams to think and act for themselves and take responsibility in the way that we would like them to becomes a real challenge. And we know also that there's a disconnect between that and some of the measurements and things businesses put in place, in terms of, we don't, as a rule, focus on the kind of metrics and the kind of activities that will help the teams to gel and act cohesively. Just going to put this model up, which is the Patrick Lencioni's 5 behaviors of a cohesive team model, but the one to focus on is at the bottom. It's the foundation one of everything in teams, and whatever team model you look at, that idea of psychological safety or vulnerable trust is at the bottom. And of course, one of the best ways of starting to get trust within a team is when we understand each other and we know our differences and we know where we bring the value to each other. And so if you've got any concerns about the cohesiveness of your team, then that's the place to go back and look and just think, actually, do we have that level of trust? And it's not, when it says trust, by the way, it's not just, do I trust somebody to be honest or something like that? That, of course, is part of it, but it's, do I have enough trust in the rest of my colleagues that I can share when I've made a mistake or when I need help? And in order to, then that's why it's called that vulnerability trust or psychological safety. And if we don't have that, as I say, then it's very hard then to build any of the other layers on top. So we use DISC. That's the sort of thing that we use within our businesses and with the clients that we work with. There's lots of other different types. They all sort of go back to Jung, I think, pretty much at the end. But I'll just take you through this a little bit. That there are no good or bad styles. There's no best style. There's just different. All the styles have some strengths and they also have limitations. And some styles can be more or less effective. All styles can be more or less effective depending on the environment. And also, we're all a blend of all styles. So if you do any of these exercises, you'll end up with a dot somewhere on a circle or something like that. But that's just the sum of all of the complexities of the different elements that make us up. We're all a blend of all of these styles. I've used the DISC here just to explain a little bit, but the birds that we've got here are the way that we look at them. Our overall branding is around eagles, BizSmart, and helping business owners to soar. And the birds that kind of characterize the different styles quite nicely are the peregrine falcon, or the hawk, if you prefer, for the Ds. You know, the focused hunting. That's, you know, very task focused, lock on, get things done sort of type characteristic. We use the cockatoo for the eyes, and that's more around then, you know, that's more about, you know, let's all achieve this together. Let's, you know, I want to, and I'm going to lead you and follow me, make it so sort of type stuff. The dove we use at the bottom right there for the S, for the more steady characteristics. They're very much about getting things done as a team, so getting along. That's what their priorities are around. And the owls are around getting things right. They're the ones that want all the detail and the analysis and things like that. So just very, very quick overview about that. But understanding those sort of characteristics and having a think about where you might be and where your team members might be will help. And I'll just start that process a little bit now. So if we use the standard sort of disc model and the colors that go with it, and I want you to think about, some of you have done this exercise and you'll know already. If you've done it with us, you will know where you are on this. Those of you that haven't, this will help you to get there. Quick and dirty, this will be, you know, it won't necessarily be particularly accurate, but it'll give you a flavor, and it will also help you to think about your team and imagine where they might be. Because the way DISC works is essentially you've got to pull to the top or the bottom. So are you, or the person you're thinking about, are they fast-paced? Do they talk quickly? Are they dynamic? Are they bold? They almost do before they think. You know, do they shoot and then aim? You know, is it that kind of person, or are they much more calm and methodical, or are you much more calm and methodical, and you want to think about things a bit more carefully? Are you a bit more moderate in the way that you speak? You might speak a bit more quietly, a bit more calm, less excitable, that kind of thing. So that's the first pull. So would you say you're more at the top half or the bottom half? That's the first question. Then the second question is, are you now more logic focused? So is that what drives you? And you like to think about the logic of things, problem solving? Are you very objective? Or are you primarily around the people side of things? So are you very much around empathizing with people, and you've probably got a wide group of social friends as well, typically, if you're in that area. So you should all be thinking now, yeah, I'm top and to the left, or I'm bottom and to the right, or whatever you are. But you also ought to be able to think a little bit about where some of your team might be, and this will help you a little bit later on as I go through some of the detail. But what you should be able to do now is think about: are you a peregrine falcon? Are you a cockatoo? Are you a dove, or are you an owl? Essentially, if you prefer the animal kingdom rather than the bird kingdom, then the top left up here might be a panther, the panther sort of style. The top right might be more of a monkey, a chimpanzee sort of type person. The dove might be more of a dolphin. And the owl is probably still the best representation, even if we're including animals within that for the wise owl sort of type characteristic. So you ought to be able to now have a feeling as to where you are. I'm going to break it there so that we can hear from a couple of our select members, but I'm going to come back to this before we go into the breakouts with some details of the different characteristics and some of the strengths and the fears and the motivations, so that you've got a little bit more of an understanding before we then talk about those in our groups. But you should now have a flavor as to where you might be in terms of DISC, if you didn't already beforehand, and you also ought to be able to think about what kind of bird you are. I'm just going to give a couple more details on some slides around the strengths and challenges of the different styles. It'll be a bit much probably for you to all note and take down, but what we'll do is we'll share those afterwards. So that will be there. But if I just share my screen again now, and you can see these. So if we go back to the D type, to the dominance, or the hawk or the falcon, peregrine falcon that we got there, then they tend to be, as we've heard already, pretty daring, adventurous, decisive kind of people. Quite direct. They can be very blunt as well, actually. But you know, they can be this, and they are the problem solvers. So all good stuff there. The value to the team is that they're a great bottom line organizer. They're very much challenge oriented, can be innovative, and they get things done. They start things off, they initiate things, they get things done. And they love, in terms of ideal environment, freedom from over control. They love an innovative environment. They love change, in other words, and they like challenge and opportunity. Okay. They can, under stress though, be rather over demanding. So if this is any of you, you might come across as being aggressive at times. Just get it done, will you? I just want it done. That sort of type stuff, maybe with a bit more colorful language in there. Possible limitations can set standards too high, take on too much, too fast, too soon. You do have to be a bit wary sometimes. If you've got Ds working for you, they may expect more of themselves in a way than they can actually deliver. And they can be a bit angry, if especially under stress. So that's the overriding emotion. So they can be cross, or come across as being cross. So if things are not working out as they should do, and an employee comes to them, then they may well be a bit abrupt and come across as a bit cross. So some good, as I say, we've all got things that with each style, things that are great, but equally, if we overplay that style, that can come across as being a bit too much. But the overriding thing about these, or the Panthers, as Helen was referring to them, is getting things done. That's their primary motivation, is to get things done. If we look at the eyes, or the monkeys, as Helen was talking about them, then these are the charming, confident, really enthusiastic, inspiring type people. They're very optimistic, sometimes maybe too optimistic, as you might hear in a minute, but all great. And the value to the team is that optimism and enthusiasm. They can make great salespeople, but they're not necessarily the best at following things through. They're a great team player, great motivators. They love lots of people contacts. These are the ones that love to be out networking. They love to be meeting new people. They've got a big circle of friends. You can probably see on their walls, they've probably also got people, they might name drop, they might have framed pictures of them with the Queen, or some celebrity, or something like that. All of that, because Helen's laughing away there, but so freedom of movement, love all of those good things. Under stress though, possibly can be a bit self-promoting. Think of a salesman, think of a typical salesman that's maybe got a bit more of a gift of the gab sort of type thing than actually is the underpinning the foundations of it. They're not very attentive to detail, so you don't want to get these people filling in loads of forms, and they might listen. They might hear what they want to hear rather than necessarily fully listening to other people. And their overriding emotion is one of optimism. Okay, so it's always going to be great. It's always going to be fantastic. That's the kind of stuff. If we come to the doves or the dolphins, very friendly, amiable people. These are on the right-hand side, remember, towards the bottom. So very, very friendly, very relaxed, stable, steady, and in fact the S stands for the steadiness, and their primary motivation here is getting along. They're very good at the team understanding and getting things done as a team. Very dependable team player. That's the real value to the team that they bring. Very service oriented, and they're patient and logical, and they love that stable environment. They don't like lots of change, and they don't like conflict either, so they'll work well to resolve that conflict with people. In terms of tendency under stress, they can be then a bit hesitant, sometimes a bit slow to make a decision, because they don't like those fast changes. They can come across as being a bit inflexible too. So if you're, and just think about where you are on a circle versus somebody else. If you're diametrically opposite, then you might perceive some of the limitations, and they might perceive some of your limitations more, because you see things quite differently. And that's often where conflicts can arise, as well as actually where some of the real benefit can arise, because you've got those different characteristics. But yes, they don't necessarily deal with lots of change very well at the same time, lots of different things. And they're generally not very emotional. They're very steady. That's the point. They don't tend to jump to high emotional type responses. And then the owls, these are the ones that love the detail. They love the data. Their overriding motivation is to get things right. Their biggest fear actually is getting things wrong and being seen to get things wrong. So very high standards. They like to have all the facts, very precise. The value to the team is they maintain really high standards, very conscientious, and they can be the one that brings you back down to earth. Helen was just talking about that a little while back. They can be the one, maybe with the dolphin as well, that just says, "Come on a minute, actually, we need to get this sorted first. It's not quite as good as you reckon, Helen. We need to get this done first, or think about it a bit more." The ideal environment is where they've got time and a space on their own generally to think critically and actually really do some proper work, if you like, to really do some of that research and analysis and get their facts straight. And the tendency under stress, or how somebody on the opposite side of the circle might see them, they might see them as being a bit pessimistic because they're the ones that are coming up and saying, have you thought of this? I'm not sure that will work, because they're the ones that are perhaps being challenged, but that can come across as being a bit picky, or maybe overly critical. Possible limitations is they can be defensive equally. They are personally invested in a way in getting things right, and when things are wrong, or somebody thinks they're wrong, then they can be a bit defensive. They can also appear to be less warm, very much less warm than the monkeys, and that can lead them to appearing to be a bit aloof at some point. So they might come across being a bit aloof, and their biggest emotion is around fear. So they say that fear of getting it wrong. So that's a really quick overview of those styles. As I say, we can share those slides a little bit later, certainly for the members of ScaleUp Club, and then you've got those. But have a think about those, and because of course what we should be thinking is, okay, well, the roles that I got people in. Helen was talking very much about the roles and the kind of things that she's getting people to do. Am I putting them in situations that would be naturally uncomfortable? So have I got an owl and I've suddenly decided I want to put them out and send them networking and meet loads of new people? Well, they might well be able to do it, and they might even do it very well, but it will be stressful for them. It's not their natural, comfortable environment. So they have to do that over a long period of time. That won't be good for them. And equally, you might think of other examples. So it can help us in thinking about the roles that we've got, as well as, and Helen talked about, do we have a gap? Do we have a team that isn't balanced? Have I built a team because I'm a monkey, for example? Have I built a team of monkeys because we have that kind of mirror bias? Now, Helen hasn't, but that is a danger. Sometimes we find that we recruit people like us because that's who we identify with. So that balanced team is really important.